Welcome, guests, to this week's edition of Have You Heard Between the White Lines. My name is Bear Hanson. I'm the hoof specialist here at Armor Animal Health. I've been here for over a year and a half. So I deal with trimmers and producers, dealing with all of the things that go with cows' hoof and healthiness of that animal. This week we'll be talking with Aaron LaVoy, owner of Midwestern Hoof Care and Midwestern Hoof Trimming School. So with no further ado, the main guy of the show, Mr. Aaron LaVoy.
Hey
Introduce
guys,
yourself a little bit, Aaron.
can you see me?
Yep.
All I see is you. Okay. Hi, I'm Aaron LaVoy with Midwestern Hoof Trimming School, Midwestern Hoof Care. Yeah, and we're gonna do some questions and answers, huh?
Yep.
All right.
So, Aaron, to get started right away, to everybody out there watching, commenting, make sure you ask as many questions as you need to. Let us know where you're coming from, what background you are in the agriculture, if you're a hoof trimmer yourself or a dairy producer, any questions you may have for Mr. LaVoy, we'll get them answered today. Aaron, when did you get into hoof trimming, and why did you get into hoof trimming?
I started hoof trimming in 2004. I'm not originally from a dairy background. I'm not originally from being around cows. I'm from a Detroit auto worker family, and I went into the military. Met my wife. She's from Wisconsin. Moved back to Wisconsin. Had a temporary job on a dairy farm until a permanent job opened. Well, I had a job lined up, and I wound up just staying at that temporary job. They said, "We want you to stay here," and I just loved working with the animals. I loved being on the farm, and I said, I didn't even have to think about it. I enjoyed it. So then, after about 4 years of working on that farm, there was some different things like whether I was to buy the farm or where I was going to go, and I was looking into starting my own business. And we had a hoof trimmer, and I kind of always admired what he did. I liked the days when he came and set up and trimmed the cows. It was just kind of one of my favorite days being on the farm. And so I just started looking into it. Within 2 months of having that little idea, I was a hoof trimmer. And that would have been 2004.
2004. So you've been at her for a while now.
February 1st, 2004, I bought a brand new Appleton steel hoof chute.
And people looked at you driving down the road like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah, yeah. And where I'm from, there's a lot of Appleton steel hoof trimming chutes.
Yeah. Yes. We talked about this a few other times before, but it didn't really wasn't a goal of yours, or this isn't what you set up to be. But what kind of led you into training and educating others on hoof health and everything that involves the health of the hoof for a good dairy cow?
So when I first finished my initial training for myself, I still had a lot of questions, and I still had a lot of insecurity about what I was doing and depth and stuff. I just wasn't sure about everything. At the same time, I was training to be a farrier, which I never finished, but some of the things I was learning there didn't add up, and with the bone structure and sole thickness. So I went to a rendering plant and I got truckload of cadaver feet, and I just started doing cadaver feet at my house, cutting them open, dissecting them to see the thickness and everything. And I kind of came across something, a natural guideline in the hoof, and I just started trimming towards that. I was just doing my thing, trimming. At no point did I think like I stumbled onto something. And after a couple of years of that, people were noticing my cows, nutritionists, breeders, veterinarians, and saying, "Hey, can you train this trimmer? Can you train this herdsman? Can you work with these people?" And it got to, after doing that a few times and those people having results, it just kind of kept growing and growing and growing to the point where I had to let go of several farms so that I could keep doing it. And then I just thought, if I'm going to be training half the time, I'm going to call it a school. I never thought like I'm going to start teaching this. I'm going to call this a school. It just kind of evolved into a training thing.
Kind of a good luck Chuck type deal there. Just kind of,
Yeah, I guess go where the demand is. And I mean, I had enough cows. I was trimming cows. I was happy, but I also enjoy training people. And that's one of the things that I'll, give a little props to the guy that initially trained me, Bill Copperrood. He always told me, he said, Aaron, I want you to do one thing and leave this industry better than you found it. And at the time, I couldn't, I was like, whatever, I'm just going to trim my cows and they'll be better. Right. And after I had been training for a couple years, I thought, I'm helping more cows doing this than I was just Aaron LaVoy in a barn trimming cows' feet. I'm helping this weekend. There was probably 20 professional hoof trimmers at the Vermont clinic. Now all those 20 guys are off doing, trimming this way. So I feel like I have done something, and that is, I do enjoy that aspect of the training, that I'm helping more cows than just the 50 or 70 that I trim per day.
Yep, that's the key of it right there, is just trying to make it better than where you got it when you found it. We got a question from Kate Avery. A little bit out of the box here, but we'll get her. Tips on trimming horses who don't want to have their feet handled.
That's why I didn't finish farrier school. I was in farrier school before I started on cows. And yeah, that's, boy, I'm not a farrier. So train the horse, I guess. If it's not the horse, it's the owner, but somebody's got to be trained there, not the farrier. The farrier is not his job to be training the horse or to be fighting and struggling. Same with dairy cows. Bear, you were a hoof trimmer. You don't want to show up to the farm and have to sort cows out. You're showing up as a professional trimmer, and I think as a farrier, they probably want to show up and be able to trim the horse, not have to catch it, train it, and.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I know in farrier school is a whole different deal than hoof trimming school for dairy cows or beef cattle, whatever. Yeah,
it's completely different.
Yeah. We got another question here from Pam Cosino. What are some key qualities a person should look for when looking for a hoof trimmer?
Oh, I get asked this a lot, and I have people ask me, like, would you encourage your children to trim cows? Would you encourage other people to trim cows? And for me, you have to, I think before even craftsmanship or skill comes in, you have to love cows. If you don't love cows, it's not the job for you, because you're out there in the heat, the hottest of the summer. You're out there in the coldest of the winter. You're dealing with cows when they don't want to be dealt with. They've been separated from their herd, and they've been put in a situation that they're not comfortable with, even though it's for their own good. They would just as soon be in their herd and in their group. So they've been pulled out of that. So if you're not able to deal with cows in that situation and understand them and read them and enjoy working with them, then it's probably not the right person. And then there's, hands-on people. Some people are good with their hands. Some people are good with their numbers. And so somebody who loves cows and good with their hands, I guess, if they're in it for the money, or they're just, out to bang things out, probably don't have the right reason behind it. But if you got somebody that's truly passionate about their job, that's the route I would go.
Yeah, very accurate there. Yes, it's definitely not going to be about the money. Question here from Elise Glazer. What is your favorite part of hoof trimming besides the paycheck?
Oh, my favorite part about hoof trimming. So there's two favorite parts of mine. I love taking a cow that just has overgrowth and she doesn't walk perfectly, and trimming her, and just no wraps, no blocks, just trimming her and watching her walk away like a dream. And so that's one of my favorite parts. My other favorite part is bittersweet, but taking a cow that's lame and having issues and trimming her up and watching her walk away completely problem free with no limp. And I'm sure you've had this done for yourself, Bear, when you were a trimmer. A cow that had a problem, when they walk away, a lot of times they take 5 steps out of the chute and they turn around and look at you. and it's almost like a thank you. To me, that is so gratifying. I really, really enjoy that part. I don't enjoy working on a lame cow, but I enjoy getting that satisfaction knowing I took this cow and I fixed her, and I swear she gave me a thank you.
Yeah, that is probably one of the most rewarding things you could ever do in your profession. What I used to do, knowing you saved somebody from going into the market, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Dr. James Heyer here. How is your trimming different than other trimmers? We talked about in the beginning, you're setting up, how you came about it with cutting feet open and learning that way. Kind of explain just, a basic way a lot of people would understand it.
Well, to put it into a nutshell, I mean, you sat through for 2 days, so there's a lot involved. But to put it in a nutshell, it's a guaranteed way to achieve even sole thickness on each claw, on the medial claw and the lateral claw, and also perfectly horizontal pedal bone placement. So the bone structure is perfectly vertical now, and the sole thickness is even from left to right horizontally. That would be the biggest difference per claw. Now, some of the other ways are doing flat and making things straight. But for me, where it branches off into two claws, that's where the difference is. That's again, in a nutshell, that would be the best way to explain what's the difference between the technique that I'm doing.
Yeah, and if we were probably a little bit more professional, we might have had like a picture or something to show. But it's
Well, if I knew that question was coming,
yeah, we do that.
I would have. I would have.
Yeah. We got a question from Caleb Pecora. What are your recommendations for how often a hoof trimmer should visit a dairy based on their herd size? Example, 200 cows every 6 months versus every month for 1,000 cows or what have you.
I run a very, very strict maintenance protocol. So for myself, for my business, you're going to trim cows at 100, 110 days in lactation, at dry off, and pre-fresh heifers. That's going to come out to about 3 times a year. Now, some people, I understand the circumstances aren't going to work for 3 times a year or for doing that sort of maintenance schedule. So I would say as long as you can get them at 3 times a year, I think running on those maintenance protocols is better. But if it's not possible, I think at least to be able to get a hoof trimmer in 3 times a year, it's cheaper to do maintenance. It's cheaper to have a hoof trimmer come in and barely do anything than it is to have a hoof trimmer come in fixing cows, because there's so much production loss. There's so much lost in breeding. It's just it's a better investment than in repairs.
Yep, that's 100% correct. Don't forget, you guys, if you have questions, keep piling them in here. Let us know where you're coming from, what your background is. I'm going to ask Aaron a question, and we're going to have a short little video. He'll explain what's happening in the video, and then we'll kind of have some follow-up there if you guys have any questions about it. So we just had that conversation right there that from the question from Kayla. But explain why maintenance trimming, hoof trimming is so essential just for the long run of the animal.
Well, there's a great big difference between cows that are not lame and cows that are extremely comfortable. So just because the cow is not lame, she doesn't have an abscess or an ulcer, it doesn't mean she's extremely comfortable. And to compare it to us, like I can't walk very far with a wrinkle in my sock or the little bit of clay stuck to the bottom of my boot. I'm a sissy that way. I'm going to stop and fix it. I'm going to fix the wrinkle in my sock. I'm going to fix the little bit of clay on my boot. I'm going to scrape it off. And cows grow hoof at about, or form hoof at about 1/4 inch per month, and they don't wear all of that hoof off the same. So they build up where they're wearing the least. Taking care of that and correcting the wear consistently and keeping the cows at the top peak of production and the most comfort, it's the best for the cows as far as a humane situation, and it's the most profitable as well.
Yeah, that is correct. Let's take a look at this video. Explain to us what's going on here, and then like I said, if you guys, anybody watching out there, if you have questions about what you see here, fire them off and we'll get them answered.
I'm not seeing the video.
I don't know if our viewers are either.
I'm thinking the video is not popping up for us, so I'm gonna just try to go off of memory and hope the video is playing. I'm imagining at this point there's pus coming out. I had just carved into it with my knife.
I'm gonna clean off all
and
of this hoof,
I was
wrap it.
Oh, here we go. All right, so yeah, I was actually in the right spot. There was pus coming out. I had investigated a little spot on the white line, and here I'm just kind of thinning the hoof so that I can do the work with my knife.
So here I'm removing any
I was just
loose
taking
or
it down
damaged
with the
hoof
grinder a
from the
little bit
affected
so that there
area.
wasn't so much knife
And,
work to
yeah,
do.
I'm doing it with a very dull knife before anybody says anything about it. I'll go sharpen my knife.
Oh, it sounds
right
like
now.
it's
So now I'm going to apply some gauze and iodine over the lesion, and then I'm going to wrap it up. I really like the 3M vet wrap. It allows the lesion to breathe. It's not waxy. And then I'm going to clean off that other claw and put a bovie block on it. So I'm not really removing any amount of hoof. I'm really just skimming it off, just to make sure that I have a clean surface, but touching it as lightly as I possibly can. So it's really important to make sure that the block is well balanced, lined up, keeping the affected claw off the ground. You know, the whole purpose of this is clearance, to elevate the affected claw.
All right, so right there we had a simple white line lesion with an abscessed hoof there. Explain kind of a little bit more in detail of why that occurs, how we try to prevent that through maintenance trimming, and kind of like what you did to clean it up there.
Yeah, and I apologize if I messed that up. I started talking and then the video came on and I could hear myself, so I stopped talking. So but anyways, what was happening there was that cow had a breakdown on the white line. The white line is where two different directions of hoof meet, and so it's the weakest spot on the bottom of the hoof, on the sole of the hoof. And that was a pasture cow, and she had a little pebble start to work its way in there, and debris had just worked its way up and up and up until it reached the corium, and then she got herself a little abscess. So what I did there was removed all of the loose stuff around the abscess site, took off any loose, poor, weak hoof horn, and then I blocked the good claw for elevation. And you couldn't really see it in there, but I mentioned it. Like, I'm really trying to get the bad claw elevated. So the angle that you apply the block and everything is very important, just to make sure that lesion has no contact with the ground at all.
And about how long would you leave that on there for? What's a good time frame? That was a minimal one, so your time frames vary, but for that cow particularly, what will we say?
I'd say 3 to 4 weeks. And every cow for me is different. So typically we're doing maintenance trimming, so we don't have a lot of those issues. So when we do run into those issues, it's case by case. Farmers will say, what is it, 3 weeks, 4 weeks on this one? Every one is different. We're going to do a judgment call. I think this one will be good in 2 weeks. I think this one, she's got a lot of damage. Maybe she needs 4 weeks. We'll recheck her, see where she's at. we'll make a decision there. So for me, it's always a little bit different. In general, rough estimate, typically 4 weeks. Hoof grows at a rate of about a quarter inch per month. So we're typically going to need, a month to establish a quarter inch of hoof under that corium again. And that's if the corium was completely healthy underneath the problem.
Yeah, that's always variables. There's multiple things that could go into that. We got a question from Brad Ingram. What is the trimmer's role in foot bath protocol?
Well, I look at myself as the hoof care professional of the farm, not just the trimmer. So I'm consulting with my farms about everything that's hoof related. If it has to do with hoof health at all, I'm on top of it on the farms that I trim for. I'm watching their foot bath, managing their foot bath, making sure that they have the best results they possibly can, calculating everything out. Whether I sell them the product or not, I want them to have, I'm selling hoof trimming, so I want them to have the best feet possible. And if that means managing their foot bath for them, working out their numbers, letting them know how things are, I'm going to do that. So I think it's a big role. I think the hoof trimmer really should have a big part in that.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because in the aspect, running a foot bath is no different than maintenance trimming, correct? Like if we didn't run a foot bath or we didn't maintenance trim, our bills are going to go higher and our profits are going to go down. So to be involved that's very important.
And my overall job is to take care of the cow and to help the farmer be profitable. That includes managing the foot bath. Yeah. I'm not going to say I spend all day managing the foot bath, but I'm going to make sure if there's a problem that I correct it, I calculate it out and make sure they're running the right amount of whatever they're using.
All right, we got another question here from James Heyer. What do you both like for hoof equipment and treatment? And also, what does Armor carry? Well, you can answer the first part.
Armor carries just about everything you need for hoof trimming. That's a no-brainer. If you need it, they got it. What do I use? Can you repeat the question? Do they want to know?
What do you like for hoof equipment and treatment? So, your grinder wheels, your knives. You mentioned the 3M vet wrap and the Bovibond blocks there, and the Bovibond glue, so stuff like that.
So I'll just run through a quick list of the things that I like the most. I like 3M vet wrap because it's breathable. I like Jorvet New Weave gauze because it doesn't interfere with the corium. When the corium's starting to produce new hoof, things like cotton and paper towels, that's organic and it's going to break down when a new hoof's starting to form. I like for lesions involving the corium, strong iodine navel dip. For lesions that are bacterial or infectious, salicylic acid and copper sulfate mixed 50-50. For blocking, I use Bovibond glue and Bovi blocks. I personally prefer the extra large block. My employee, Pedro, he really likes the large block. We both have great results, so they're both pretty it's a wash. And knives, I use the Asculip knives. There's lots of good knives out there. That one is just a whatever you're used to, whatever you're comfortable with. There's loads of great knives out there. The ones that I use on my shoot, they're going to be Asculip though. And then Diamond brand nippers. And then for wheels, I use the Rotoclip. My personal favorite, and Bear will know this, you have to get every little piece right or you're not going to get the same one. Yeah. But I use the Rotoclip flat insert 4-inch thin 3-slot aggressive.
That is a mouthful, and just luckily.
And if we don't get all those pieces, you're not going to get that same wheel.
That is correct. Yeah, we have a very fascinating line of products for in-house trimmers, professional trimmers, just dairy house guys that do it themselves. Actually, the new 2020 hoof catalog is out there right now, so pick that up. My cell phone is right there. I'm available via text, call. It doesn't matter. I'm always available. Most of my guys know that, especially Aaron. Anytime he needs something, forgets his wheel when he goes to Vermont, shoots a text, we get it taken care of.
Yeah.
Well, we got another question here from Ben Westway. Can you talk a little bit about corkscrews and reverse corkscrews and the likely cause? Your buddy Ben.
Ben messaged me on my way here.
Yeah.
What time is your talk? Hey, Ben. It's all got to do with the bone structure and the wear. And that's a long one. I think Ben was setting me up for this one. That's a long talk, but as I said before, cows don't wear evenly. They grow a 1/4 inch of hoof per month, but they only wear one side or the other more. Just like bottom of my boots aren't perfectly even. I wear off more on the inside heel. And so it's an accumulation of overgrowth and, keeping on getting bigger and bigger on one side and smaller on the other side. And that's going to cause the it's going to cause the claw to twist. And then a corkscrew is when the bones, because the cow has 3 bones in her toe, just like we have 3 bones in our finger. And when the ligament is torn, we have a ligament over here and a ligament over here, the axial and the abaxial collateral ligament. And when one of them tears, then the bone is going to rotate to the side. That's a true corkscrew. So we can head that off by trimming and keeping it straight rather than letting it get bent and bent and bent more and more, and then putting pressure on that ligament and the ligament ultimately tearing.
Yeah, that's
I
a
hope
great way to put it. There's a lot of different ways that there's a lot of things that cause that issue to happen. From it could be heifers, it could be in the cows. That's one that nobody likes to deal with.
Oh, definitely. It starts with heifers. Heifers typically don't get feed pushed in as often as cows. Heifers today aren't making any money. They're going to make money after they calve. And that's where, again, I will start to consult with the farms and say, look, you need to push in the feed for the cow or for the heifers, because otherwise they're going to have hoof issues. And that's going to make it harder for me to give you good cows with good feet. So that is a big one. But ultimately, those heifers reaching for feed, when they reach, they push and they wear off more on the inside and they build up more on the outside because they're not wearing it. It just gets worse and worse.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a problem there. That's why, it's very important talking to vets and nutritionists that we keep these farmers up to date with this stuff. When we got a situation right now in the world that's kind of putting everybody down, but like for us in the dairy industry, it always has to go. They don't stop no matter what's happening. So when money's tight and everything looks like the world's falling apart, like how do you keep farmers consistent with trimming and foot baths and stuff, so they don't cut back on these key essential things during times that we might feel like it's a time to just cut back here and there?
So I'm sorry, I had to move into my truck. My phone was almost dead.
So prepared.
We can't afford to skip a trim. And like I said before, I trim at 100 days in milk, 100 days in lactation, dry off and pre-fresh heifers. And I'll tell farmers, if they'd ask like, what trim could we cut out? And I would say, well, when would you prefer your lame cows or your cows to be uncomfortable? We can't. Do you want to be proactive and make as much as you can? Or do you want to save a little bit of money to lose even more? And that's essentially what it is. If you're saving money on hoof trimming, or you're saving money on animal welfare in any way or form, it's to lose more money. You're never going to spend money on animal welfare, animal care, and not get a return on it, with cows especially.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. So we brought up in the beginning, you have your hoof care business that you and your employee run, and then you also have the Midwestern Hoof Care School. Managing both of those, how difficult or easy is that? I guess is it a challenge, or is it basically been pretty easily manageable over the last how many years? Because how many years has the school been going?
It's about 6. I had told you the other day that I thought it was 5. It's 6 years now that I've called it a school. I've been training since before that, but it was just LaVoy Hoof Trimming was training a guy. I started Midwestern Hoof Trimming School 6 years ago. As far as managing both of them goes, Pedro, the hoof trimmer, he takes care of everything. He does a phenomenal job. He doesn't need me there. I'm there when I can be, but he manages and runs that part. The farmers love him. His lameness rate is phenomenal. So that part's fairly simple. The scheduling, the training and the courses and the workshops, that gets to be a little hectic because you're on the phone a lot, you're emailing a lot. But and then a lot of times, like last week, I was at Vermont doing the Vermont workshop, and I was getting texts and emails the whole time, but I was working. I was working with people who had me there to do a school, so I didn't have time to respond to all of those calls and stuff. So it does get a little bit hard, but overall, it's it's fairly smooth rolling, and I think people are pretty understanding.
And for those of you that don't know, if you're in Vermont without Wi-Fi, your phone is useless. So,
Yeah, completely.
yeah. So we got a couple questions about the schooling. So I'm going to bring this up for you, and then we'll just roll into those. You travel quite a bit. We see your posts on Facebook or your YouTube channel now. Where have you kind of been, and like, what are places you've trained and traveled to, and like, what's the most memorable experience?
So I've done training workshops, spoke at conferences and stuff in a lot of different countries. Dominican Republic, Scotland, Ireland, England, Germany, Russia. To pick one would be like trying to pick one of the trim cycles that what's the one we can get rid of. But if I had to say one, I would say Russia was probably the most memorable experience. That was the biggest change for me, or culturally. I just really, really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all of those places. I haven't been on one trip yet that wasn't amazing. But if I had to pick one, I'd say probably going to Russia was like a huge eye opener. It wasn't what I thought it would be. It was just a really, really great experience. And also, I was working with a large group of 17 hoof trimmers, and they were like the most open-minded, ready to learn and get right at it type of guys that I've ever worked with. So that would probably be the most memorable. Like I said, they've all been great. I haven't been on a trip yet that I wouldn't go back on.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's nice to be able to travel. Like you said, we go back to the beginning, leave it better than what you came into. And that's basically what that means. And that's what you're doing. You have the opportunity to do that. That's great. Dr. Jim, here he sends a message in again. Any schools in the future for farms that want to train an employee to trim?
I do lots of that. I do lots of on-site training for large farms that have their in-house hoof trimmers. That's one of those things where they just contact me and I come out and do it.
And what's the best way to contact you? By cell phone, text, email, Facebook?
Oh yeah, all of them.
All of them.
I get it. Yep, cell, text, Facebook, email. Yeah,
There you go.
Email's probably the least best.
No comment. What is the Brad Ingram sends another a question in. What is the biggest thing you want your students to take away from one of your courses?
What I tell the guys when they come, say I'm training a new guy, I always tell them the difference between the guys who make it and the guys who kind of fizzle out is the guys who make it stay involved. They attend workshops. Of course, you have to care about the cows. But as far as like the profession goes, keep studying, keep practicing, keep trying to get better. And I said this at the Vermont clinic. the professional athletes practice 5 days a week to play 1 day. And, you know, the best of the best, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, practice and practice and practice to play. They're already the best in the world, and they still practice. So looking at it from a hoof trimmer's perspective, you're never done learning. You can always get better. You can always refine yourself. And the guys that do that always excel. And the guys that just go and say, all right, I got training, I'm a hoof trimmer now. A lot of times they don't quite make it because they don't have that competitive edge to be the best, or to try to be the best at least. We're in a competitive industry.
Yes, that is very true. We had how many guys up there last week, and there was about 8 of them within 20 miles of each other. So that's
all
really
of them were professionals with experience trying to get better.
Yep.
Imagine being the guy in that area who didn't go, and all those other guys went to get better. You know, they got the edge on you. I think there was 6 or 7 guys with over 20 years experience each at that group.
Yeah.
That just shows you, if you're a rookie and you got 2 years in and you're not attending workshops and trying to get better, and there's guys with 20 years experience trying to get better, they're going to wash you up.
Yeah, and a play off of that, kind of like, what do you have? So you talked about training new guys, like advice for a new guy looking to become a hoof trimmer. If there's, you know, if we have a guy out there watching right now that's kind of going back and forth, he's, you know, maybe worked with a trimmer or seen his trimmer at his farm, and he's got an idea of like, maybe this would be a good idea for me. What would you have some advice for those guys?
Well, if you truly love working with cows, and you want to own your own business, which isn't for everybody to own your own business, and working with cows every day isn't for everybody. But if you truly do want to do both those things and you like both those things, I would say go after it, get proper training. And then again, don't stop getting training. Keep going to seminars, keep going to courses, keep going, trimming with other trimmers. I still have never gone to work with another guy and didn't pick one thing up to take home, whether it's with my equipment or cows or something. You can always learn something from somebody. So my advice would be, never just go into your corner and do your thing. Always try to be involved and build off of that. Keep trying to build and be better.
All right. So it looks like we don't have any more questions. Any final closing remarks that you want to throw out there, or any advice other than what we just had there, for anybody that might be out there watching and have anything going on?
Oh, I don't know. I think I just talked myself out.
Okay.
Yeah, everything I have has come from cows. So I feel like I owe cows back everything I can give them. And, you know, I love working with cows. So if you're that type of person and you want to be in this industry, you know.
That's it. Well, Aaron, I appreciate your time. You've been amazing. I wish the best of luck with not only the trimming business, but the school. I thank all of you for joining us for today's Have You Heard Between the White Lines with Mr. Aaron LaVoy of the Midwestern Hoof Trimming School and Midwestern Hoof Care. Thank you for joining us. Join us next week for fall weaning prep for beef cattle. Dr. Jacobs and our inside sales rep, Joe, will be live at 3 p.m. Central again. And you guys have a great day.